qualquer referência àquilo que estamos hoje a fazer, a Universidade de Lisboa, sendo uma instituição de ensino superior universitário, é uma instituição onde a liberdade de expressão, a liberdade de pensamento, o contraditório opinativo e tudo aquilo que constitui a universidade, nem sempre foi matriz da nossa universidade, mas os tempos eram outros, é aquela que melhor cumpre, se me permitem, que seja eu, o professor da Faculdade de Direito, a dizer isto, aquela que melhor cumpre esse desiderato. Por isso é que a Faculdade está constantemente a ser referida nos órgãos de comunicação social, exatamente porque o contraditório aqui é vivo. Há pessoas de todas as correntes políticas, de todas as sensibilidades sociais, de todas as formas de pensar, de todas as orientações, e é nisso que nós acreditamos para que Portugal seja, no futuro, um país mais justo e mais equitativo. Esta é uma referência que explica que o Instituto Interdisciplinar da Faculdade de Lisboa tenha, por sugestão da Dra. Natália Santos, que integra o Instituto, receba hoje, aqui no anfiteatro, o nosso representante da Frente Polisário junto das Nações Unidas, também em Nova Iorque, junto da MINUSO, que disse bem, Missão das Nações Unidas para o referendo no Sahara Ocidental. Não é preciso apresentarmos aqui nenhuma síntese sobre o problema, porque é um problema suficientemente tratado, quer na comunicação social, quer nos tratados de direito internacional. Sendo assim, eu começo por dar as boas-vindas à doutora Isabel Lourenço, do Centro de Estudos Africanos da Universidade do Porto, à doutora Natália Santos, presidente da Associação Portuguesa de Juristas Democratas. Estão aqui representantes das embaixadas da Argélia, da República Democrática do Congo, do Movimento Democrático das Mulheres, da Associação dos Estudantes Marxistas-Leninistas e, se me permitem, vejo na sala autoridades académicas, Sr. Reitor, bem-vindo, autoridades académicas e outras que dão ao nosso evento de hoje aquilo que é a importância de ouvir. Ouvir é, talvez, aquilo que mais falta nos dias que temos. E, sendo assim, ouvir alguém que representa o povo do deserto, acho que é assim que se traduz o povo do Saara, e, portanto, ouvir um povo do deserto, independentemente da posição que tenhamos sobre a parte política, ou sobre as razões, ou sobre a dimensão jurídica do problema, ouvir é compreender. E compreender é, basicamente, saber. Sendo assim, com a licença da mesa, eu daria de imediato a palavra ao nosso Dr. Sidi Omar e, depois da sua intervenção, abrirei com um curto período de perguntas, se tiver essa bonomia de nos deixar perguntar coisas sobre aquilo que vai dizer. Nós então faríamos cerca de 20 minutos, meia hora, o máximo, de questionamento ao nosso convidado. É uma honra para mim receber e a palavra é sua. Tenha a palavra.
Muito obrigado e boa tarde para todas e todos. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the Faculty of Law of the Universidade of Lisboa and to all of those who have participated in organizing this great event on an important issue, which is the issue of Western Sahara. My very special thanks go to Portuguesa e Juristas Democratas, o Centro de Estudos Africanos da Universidade de Porto e também o Instituto de Investigação. The conflict in Western Sahara is one of the longest running conflicts now. It's been going on for 40 years, and despite the international efforts represented by the United Nations and the African Union, unfortunately, the solution is not in sight yet. So this presentation, what I intend to do is to explain the root causes of the continued resolution of this conflict and to explore help us to move forward and achieve a peaceful and lasting solution to this clear-cut case of decolonization. And in the end, I hope that we have enough time for a serene, broader, and purely academic dialogue. And I insist on the word dialogue, dialogue, letter. Now, to frame our discussion, I will highlight some main facts that may help us understand the political, legal context of the conflict across the Sahara.
Tecnologia é assim, interrompe qualquer coisa.
Há muitas pessoas a ver o Zoom. Estamos a pôr o palco.
Thank you very much.
As pessoas que estão no Zoom.
So let's start by the first well-established fact. We refer to the United Nations organization, the main, a multilateral organization that we have in this world. And for the United Nations, Western Sahara is a decolonization case on the agenda of the General Assembly and subsequent organs since 1963. The origin of the violent conflict in Western Sahara go back to 1975 when both neighboring countries, Morocco and Mauritania, invaded the territory following the departure of the erstwhile colonial power, which is Spain. But in reality, the root causes of the conflict lie in the expansionist ideology promoted in Morocco right after its independence, which is called Reign in Morocco, that claimed all Morocco's immediate neighbors and even beyond, in Mauritania and Senegal. And the Moroccan force of the occupation of the land is the force of the Sahara Ocidental, under the leadership of their sole and legitimate representative, Frente Polisário, to continue the struggle, the anti-colonial struggle, which had already started in 1973 against Spain. Consistent with its policy of not recognizing as legal any acquisition of territory by force, the United Nations, the multilateral organization around this world, has never recognized the legality of Morocco's illegal occupation of Sahara. In fact, the General Assembly, which is one of the main 6 organs of this organization, back in 1979 and 1980, describes Morocco's presence in Western Sahara as a continued occupation. In English. In the meantime, the Sahara Republic, proclaimed by the Sahara people under the leadership of Frente Polisário on 27th February 1976, which is the full and founding member of the African Union, the continental organization that governs all African nations, including Morocco, since 2017, remains the institutional, legal, and political framework within which the Sahrawi people pursue their liberation struggle and nation building. Now we talk about the peace plan, and I'm not going to get into details. Very briefly, I assume that some of you may know about this issue. So, but just to remind you that back in August 1988, after almost 6 years of war, the United Nations and the Organization of African Unity obtained the acceptance, the formal acceptance, by the 2 parties to the conflict in Western Sahara, the Frente Polisário and Morocco, to their separate plan, which was then approved by the Security Council, which in April 1991 established the United Nations mission for a referendum in Western Sahara with a very clear mandate to hold a referendum for the sovereign nation of the Sahara. Obviously, obviously at that time, hopes were generated that blocks, long blocks, the longest colonial running conflict in Africa was about to be resolved, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Fast forward, in January 2000, the United Nations Commission for a Referendum on Sahara wished to establish the first provisional list, listing 386 voters for the referendum. After a very meticulous operation done by the United Nations, not by the parties, as the basis of the vote, and it assured to the parties, and it was at that precise moment that Morocco backed from its from the referendum, for the very simple reason that they know that they will lose the battle. You may hear about some technical and logistical issues, who is Sahrawi and who is not. The UN process of Sahara is not about identifying who is a Sahrawi and who is not. That's for the Sahrawi Republic to do. It was about putting the conditions for the Sahrawi people, those voters to vote, exactly as it did in East Timor, if you remember. It was not about identifying who is not, who is eligible to vote in that referendum. So, as I said, that was the moment that Morocco backed out from the whole process, unfortunately, the Security Council, which is established in the and we got to compete. Now, why has the North failed in fulfilling the mandate after only 30 years? Well, obviously, the first reason is the lack of political will on part of Morocco, which has already been on its commitments, the settlement plan, and at the same time, it has tries to entrench and legitimize its occupation of parts of the territory. Second, the lack of political will on some members of the Security Council to use all diplomatic means at the disposal of the Council to compel Morocco to honor, at least honor its commitments under the peace plan. And as I said, the Council has failed in supporting and upholding the mandate of UNOSO that it has established for its authorities. Now, and this is where we now enter into the main topic of looking into this tension between law and parties, as we are here in the Faculty of Law. But let me share with you one of my prejudices in a, of course, positive sense. I believe firmly that politics and law are intrinsically linked. You cannot understand politics without understanding the normative context in which it's based out, and you cannot understand law without understanding, of course, the political context in which they are. And this is, I hope, to be the framework in which we will go to look at the issue of Sahara. The failure of the Security Council to uphold the mandate of UNOSO is obviously aggravated by the fact that the Council has opted for an ambivalent, a confusing sometimes, and what we call a business as usual approach. And based on this, we can safely say that the root cause of the continued resolution of this clear-cut conflict of decolonization in Africa lies in this persistent tension between some approach based on realpolitik and the doctrine, the legally based doctrine of the right of because and even the recent attempts by the United Nations, especially specifically the Security Council, to reconcile these two approaches have always ended up in confusing and contradictory outcomes. And I'll explain that now very briefly. Since 2007, and after Morocco backed out from the settlement plan, the Peace Papers plan, the Security Council had started talking about, and after the two parties presented the two proposals, talking about a mutually acceptable political solution that would provide self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. Fast forward to October 2018, And then we have the Council talking not only about this mutually acceptable political solution, but also a practicable, realistic, and enduring political solution based on compromise. Now, from a clear support for a self-determination referendum, agreed by the parties, formally approved by the Council in various resolutions, the Council has moved to this realpolitik-based approach that promotes the so-called mutually acceptable political solution. Now, without doubt, direct negotiations are very essential for resolving this conflict. And I can say that as far as the Frente Polisário is concerned. And it's actually thanks to negotiations that we achieved the agreement on the peace plan, using agreements in 1997 and so forth. So negotiations is very essential to this process. However, and now here back to the tension between law and politics. Calling on the parties, the two parties, Frente Polisário and Morocco, to enter into negotiations in good faith without preconditions to achieve a peaceful, mutually acceptable political solution, and so on and so forth, which will provide the nation of the people of Sahara is, as the logicians would say, contribution in terms. And I'll explain that. Because it is incompatible with the very principles that underpin the right of colonial people to self-determination. And it's actually, as I said, a prime example of the law politics tension. Because basically the Council is no longer talking about the process, procedural matters. It is trying to infuse the process with a substance. And the case of Sahara, as I already said, it is a decolonization issue recognized by the United Nations. So the holder, the subject to law students of this right, which is the right to self-determination, is the Sahara people, not the parties or the Security Council for that matter. All relevant UN resolutions and legal doctrine, including the famous historic ruling by the International Court of Justice on Western Sahara, which, by the way, is taken as one of the main references for legal explanation for the right of colonial people to self-determination. All of them affirm that the essence of the right to self-determination of colonial people is to be determined through a free process, where their will is expressed in an informed, free, and genuine manner. This is what it's all about, the right to self-determination. Which means that the will of the Sahrawi people should be expressed freely and democratically without any interference from any kind. This expression must also be genuine, and through, obviously, internationally recognized mechanisms, including the referendum, which was promised for the Sahrawis and was implemented in East Timor, and so on. So this self-contradictory approach by the Council is what I believe is one of the main underlying causes of the current statement that we have in this process. Negotiations by their very nature entail a forward-looking and imaginative and creative way of dealing with conflicts, in order to explore all possibility of reaching an agreement. However, in all rounds of formal and informal talks, negotiations, and roundtables, I myself was part of this process. All these negotiations and talks held under this provision of the United Nations 2007 in Manhattan, in New York, the United States of America. Morocco, the other party, has always insisted on its proposal of autonomy as the basis of the solution. Now, apart from its illegality, because it's simply illegal and I will prove that, this proposal is obviously unacceptable to all of us. Because, first of all, it goes against the Council's call for a negotiations without preconditions in good faith. And by contrast, we have already and always expressed our will to negotiate on the means and ways whereby the colonial people of Western Sahara would exercise the right to free and democratic, because this is the essence of the right to self-determination. And we have all right, time and again expressed our willingness to pay our share to achieve this and restore stability in our region. However, based on international law and UN resolutions, we believe firmly that sovereignty of over Western Sahara and consequently the determination of the final states of the territory is vested exclusively in the holder of the right to self-determination in Western Sahara, which is the Sahara. So what Morocco seeks, actually, through this proposal of autonomy is precisely to determine in advance the final states of the territory by transforming it into an autonomous region, and consequently to exercise the right to decide on this crucial matter on behalf of the people of the Sahara. And this would indeed be a travesty of the very sense of what the right of colonial people to self-determination is. Now, because this proposal has been hailed and described by certain governments, like the US government, as credible and serious, the most serious by the Spanish government, good places by the German government, and a host of annexes. What I'm going to do now, very briefly, and apart from any legal analysis that anybody interested in law can actually undertake, will demonstrate that Morocco cannot grant any autonomy in Western Sahara because it does not have sovereignty over the territory. In the nation-state world that we go after the Second World War, there has never been one single case in which a country grants autonomy to any area over which it does not have a United Nations recognized sovereignty. That's a historical fact. So despite the legal issues that are there, the political, what I'm going to do now is to mention three elements in order to determine, but in a case, in a genealogical sense, if you want to construct these proposals for the sake of argument and to see whether it could be the basis of any solution. First, I don't know who among you have read this. 35 pages or paragraphs does not mention the Frente Polisário. No, not once. Frente Polisário is the sole usually representative of the people of Western Sahara, the United Nations recognized party to this conflict. So if that's the case, no party to this conflict recognized, and therefore, for those of us from conflict, the resolution background, it takes two, as it takes two to tango, it also takes two to get into this our conflict, international relations, not terminology. But in this case, there's no other path. Second, self-determination is mentioned once in this proposal, but no mention of the Sahrawi people. You'll find populations, tribes, in all ethnic and demographic terms that has nothing to do with the notion of the Sahrawi people, highlighted not only by the journalists, operative paragraph, it's noted Security Council resolution, the people of Western Sahara, the Congo, the Sahara Ocidental. There is a dimension of this in this proposal. But as I said, some ethnic and other terminology. So the distinct entity, which is Sahrawi, is not anywhere to be seen. Now, according to paragraph 27 of that proposal, the autonomy proposal would be consulted in a referendum. This is what this proposal says. Now, the question, of course, arises. What makes this referendum contained in this proposal more practicable and realizable than the one that the United Nations has mobilized all sorts of resources to organize? It's a question that ended. So perhaps the difference between the two referenda is that, of course, the United Nations was going based on its doctrine of decolonization, provided the Saharawi with two options: peace, independence, or integration. And the Moroccan proposal is going to provide the Saharawi obviously two proposals, which is integration or integration. And as you can see how absurd that is. So, in a nutshell, and this is the point I would like to stress, Morocco wants to negotiate a proposal with a party that it does not recognize to grant autonomy to the people that it doesn't recognize. What an absurd proposal. So what Morocco does in reality, it wants to legitimize a unilateral action or the illegal use of force and its illegal occupation of parts of Western Sahara. So, as we can see in this very brief analysis of this so-called proposal, it is not credible, it is not serious, and cannot be a basis, whatever the attribute you put in English before it, be it the most or superlative and whatever. It is an illegal proposal, and its illegal nature indeed exposes the indefensible positions expressed by certain governments and even analysts who seem miraculously to have seen some merit in it. Absurd, as I said, and illegally. And legally unfounded proposal. And obviously this is why the Frente Polisário has rejected. Now I come to the last part, which is the conclusions. Indeed, the question of Western Sahara is a decolonization issue on the agenda of the United Nations since 1963, which means in a very simple way that the Sahrawi people must be given the chance to decide on their destiny in a free, genuine, and democratic manner. And it is our understanding that the continued search for a negotiated solution will require restoring confidence, which is no longer there, because of course a variety of reasons for all continuing illegal occupation of the territory, its oppression of Sahrawis living there, the plunder of the natural resources of the territory, and a very long list of transgressions documented very clearly in various reports. So there is a need indeed for confidence-building measures to try to address these huge and tremendous psychological barriers that have been erected during this conflict. And so the success of any UN supervised process of negotiation will depend obviously on the political will of both parties, but not only to see a mutually acceptable political solution, but also to reflect about their post-solution context. And I think that this collective process is essential to achieve not only a win-win solution, but also to lay the foundation of a forward-looking, as I was saying before, a mutually beneficial long-term relationship. And in this sense, the serious, credible, practical proposal presented by the French Polisário on the 10th of April 2007 in January contains many elements that will address this, including the so-called existential fear of Moroccan regime, of the equating its continuous control over Western Sahara and its survival. And in that proposal, there are elements that can ally its concern in many different ways. The Security Council will have to realize the adverse and devastating consequences of its ambivalent and business as usual hands off approach. And this is a very dangerous actually approach, because it is based on the assumption that because of some certain geopolitical considerations, that we don't know what they are, but this is what in Europe some cabinet, the least costly solution now in political terms is to leave the parties, the two of them, resolve this conflict by themselves. based on their relational power and other sources of powers and alliances, etc. And I think the aggressive moves that we have seen lately by Morocco, like itself to Israel and sending its soldiers to whomever, is in this direction. And the Security Council obviously will have to take concrete steps to deal with the situation now on the ground after the collapse of the ceasefire. It should and must realize that the referendum from information contained in the original peace plan remains the only mutually acceptable solution. The only mutually. Deal in town is the settlement plan that we both must accept. Now, indeed, a conflict like the Sahrawi-Moroccan conflict, like other conflicts, we call deep-sea conflicts, they do affect the deepest part of us as human beings, our sense of identity, our needs, and a variety of matters relating to human beings as individuals and groups. But also, this conflicted dynamics generated by this process of change, albeit, of course, very slowly, as human beings and communities change, define and redefine their sense of belonging, their sense of identity, obviously in regard to their own experiences and circumstances. And this sometimes creates new possibilities that we explore to find a solution. The Sahrawi people, wherever they are, remain strongly attached to their non-negotiable rights to self-determination and to their right to legitimate resistance, recognized by the United Nations. However, we continue to hope that one day courage and foresighted could prevail on the other side, so we could work jointly to reach a mutually acceptable solution that really provides for the self-determination of the people. But we have to be very clear that no solution in Western Sahara will ever prove just and lasting if it does not provide for the genuine exercise by the Sahara people in the right of self-determination of things in a free and genuine way. And at the end, we were talking to students and faculty of law. Self-determination is one of the pillars of the international system, Article 2 and 55 of the UN Charter. The treaty by excellence, which is one of the sources of international law, self-determination is, in its essence, about the people concerned making a choice, a free and genuine choice, not about someone else making that choice. And I finish with this. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado. Bom, três coisas rápidas. Como eu disse no início, o contraditório é a base do direito. Em todos os conflitos há duas posições. Há a posição de um dos lados e há a posição do outro lado. Nós hoje ouvimos a posição da Frente Polisário. Mas Marrocos tem outra perspectiva do conflito e é assim em todos os conflitos. É da ética do direito ouvir as partes e compreender, de acordo com os argumentos usados, como é que o direito depois se aplica. Nunca esquecer isto, porque isto é a base da universidade. É nós sabermos respeitar o contraditório. E é assim que eu tenho duas ou três coisas a dizer. O Instituto grava sempre a mesa, portanto, Vossa Excelência está a ser gravado, espero que entendam o que eu digo, não é? Está a ser gravado para cá, e portanto, se alguém fizer uma intervenção, o áudio pelo menos ficará gravado, e portanto, isto é para dizer que nós temos um regulamento de proteção de dados que é importante. Vamos ter algumas perguntas, peço-vos que as perguntas sejam mais perguntas do âmbito daquilo que o direito pode fazer no âmbito do conflito, propriamente uma divergência política que sempre está presente. A politicidade destas coisas é óbvia, mas é uma faculdade de Direito e por isso é no âmbito do argumento, do contraditório argumentado que as perguntas devem ser feitas e pedíamos, porque temos apenas 25 minutos para as perguntas, que as perguntas fossem curtas, porque também vou pedir aqui ao Dr. Omar que responda de uma forma breve e sucinta. Como há pessoas que estão no Zoom e podem querer fazer perguntas, eu pedia sempre perguntas curtas, já tenho ali um pedido de palavra, e eu vou ouvir as pessoas e depois, se tiver perguntas também no Zoom, agradeço que me digam para eu poder fazer aqui uma boa gestão do tempo, porque o pior é gerir o tempo, está bem? Portanto, perguntas curtas e, na medida do possível, dirigidas. Sou Pedro. Não?
Estava a dizer que colocar no chat para as perguntas.
As perguntas vêm pelo chat de alguém em Portugal. As perguntas podem ser feitas em qualquer língua, creio, desde que entendamos. A doutora Isabel dirá no chat, tenho ali um pedido, tenho a abordar.
Thank you, sir. If I understood you very well, we are here in front of one narrative, that is the Polisario's narrative. Allow me first to introduce myself. I am Mohammed Ahmed Gain, a university professor, affiliated expert with the Middle East Institute in Washington on the Maghreb and Sahel issues. I am Moroccan Sahrawi, and I am here to make few comments, quick ones, and one question to the speaker here. Yeah, true, sir. As you said, that the question of the Sahara was introduced to the Decolonization Committee in 1963, and it wasn't introduced by Morocco. That's what you did not say. And at that time, there was no Polisario. Now, about the Polisario's narrative, and here we are in the Faculty of Law, and there are certainly experts and students of law. Let's take it with let's take as our reference United Nations, and also international law. My question, and I will give an answer to this question to Mr. Sidi Omar. Could you please give me one single reference in international law that states that the self-determination goes necessarily and only through referendum? Again, give me one single reference in international law that states that self-determination goes necessarily and only through referendum. This is not the case. There are different applications of this right to self-determination. One of them is territorial autonomy. And experts, international jurists, say that territorial autonomy is one of the most effective ways of applying and respecting it. Now, sir, you say that Morocco is determining in advance the situation. Don't you think that you determine in advance an outcome that is not there, with a self-proclaimed state that is not recognized by anyone? Now we are in front of a regional conflict to which there are different parties. And if we look at the evolution of the wording of the United Nations Security Council, the resolutions now they are talking about the all concerned. Because as you see, Geneva 1 and Geneva 2 entrenches the fact that there are parties, and one of them is Algeria, who is evolving its authorities and taking again as my reference United Nations. There is a recommendation by the United Nations Human Rights Committee. This is something new. There is a recommendation that states that there is a devolution, a de facto devolution of jurisdictional authority from Algeria to the Polisario. The same recommendation was reiterated by the United Nations Secretary General, saying that this devolution is the cover-up of grave human rights violations in Tindouf camps. They introduced Tindouf camps as refugee camps. Have you ever heard about detention centers in refugee camps? I can give you references about the gross violations committed within the camps. I am Sahrawi. I am telling you what I am living. Second, last comment, please. The Security Council says that the proposal introduced by Morocco is credible, serious, and realistic. Let's look for realism. And sticking to this narrative that is flawed, which is not scientific, there is no such a thing that a referendum is the only way of applying the right to self-determination. Please respect these experts in this room. Something else. You said, who is Sahrawi? Let me ask you, who is in the camps? Why the Polisario refuses to carry out a census in the camps, Despite the calls, the many calls by the United Nations Security Council, we don't know who is on the camps. How could we address a community we don't know? Also, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees does not carry out its mandate to protect who is in those people in the camps. So, to finish, you know what I'm saying? That's my 4th time to come to speak in a university and trying to introduce the other narrative that is silenced here. How could you, and I would prefer, please sir, I am a university professor, invite us with our brothers and introduce both narratives to the audience and make them fresh. That's my goal. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Eu vou falar português.
I don't understand Portuguese, but...
Je peux parler le français aussi.
Ah, c'est mieux, oui.
Alors, je suis le président ici. Je suis le professeur qui a invité tous les gens pour participer. Alors, on peut réexpédier le président, s'il vous plaît. Alors, on peut parler avec du calme, avec la diplomatie. On peut parler. C'est une université, c'est être professeur. Nous avons ici un autre professeur. Nous pouvons parler as a professor. Ok? Senhor Reitor, muito obrigado por estar connosco. Está connosco o antigo reitor da Universidade Europeia. Senhor professor, é uma honra tê-lo aqui. Dou a palavra.
Professor Oliveira Cruz, tenho muito gosto em revê-lo aqui neste fórum. Eu vou fazer a minha intervenção em português porque a maioria das pessoas presentes aqui são portuguesas e, por conseguinte, vão entender aquilo que eu tenho para dizer. Na verdade, eu não tenho muita coisa para vos dizer, tenho apenas uma pergunta para colocar ao senhor representante das Nações Unidas da Frente Polisário. Antes disso, vou me apresentar. O meu nome é Dr. Como disse o senhor professor, fui reitor da Universidade Europeia, onde sou neste momento professor catedrático. E o meu nome é Gibi, sou originário do Sahara. O meu avô nasceu nos territórios do sul de Marrocos e fugiu no início do século XIX, quando o território foi colonizado, porque era um dos protagonistas da união do território entre o norte, o centro e o sul de Marrocos. E, obviamente, morreu na cidade portuguesa de Mogador, a antiga cidade portuguesa de Mogador, que é a atual Saleira de Marrocos. E o meu pai, também no Gibi, lutou pela independência e acabou por ser preso pelos colonialistas franceses naquela altura e não chegou a ser executado por um trecho, porque Marrocos chegou à independência relativamente cedo. Por isso, este é um enquadramento, digamos, da minha origem e para vos mostrar que esta questão do Saara já data do início do século passado, provavelmente do fim do século XVIII, XIX, porque, na verdade, havia sempre relações de emergência, isto é, de reconhecimento do poder da monarquia sobre o total do território marroquino e, por isso, a questão do Saara não é uma questão nova, não é uma questão de descolonização, é uma questão, essencialmente, da recuperação das províncias saarianas de Marrocos. Dito isso, vou diretamente para a pergunta. Pergunta ao senhor representante do Polisário se, depois da Argélia ter fechado o gasoduto entre a Argélia e o gasoduto Magreb-Europa, se a Argélia, depois de ter fechado o espaço aéreo entre Marrocos e a Argélia, se a Argélia, depois de ter chamado para consulta, como sabem, chamar para consulta e quase romper as relações diplomáticas do seu embaixador em Madrid, se continua a considerar que a Argélia não é parte do conflito. Portanto, esta é a pergunta que eu coloco.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Professor. Sr. Taufik, somos colegas também na Universidade Europeia. Muito lhe agradeço, não só o enquadramento, como a pergunta que fica aqui registrada. Eu pergunto se há mais perguntas, porque eu tenho aqui perguntas no chat. É só um minuto. Juntamos 3 questões. Não é? Temos a questão ali do Sr. Professor, a questão do professor Taufik, e temos aqui 2 questões rápidas. E há questões no chat. Enquanto aqui o nosso convidado responde às vossas questões, eu depois lerei as perguntas do chat para ver se nós conseguimos acabar a hora. Está bem? Portanto, eu passo a palavra ao Sr. Professor Pedro Caridade Freitas, depois da Sra. Pedrinha, encerramos este ciclo de perguntas para a seguir termos as respostas. Está bem? Sr. Professor, tenha à vontade.
Professor, thank you for your communications. My question is very simple. You defend your right of self-determination in the United Nations Resolution of 15 and 14?
This is the question. Okay. Obrigado, professor, por uma pergunta permitida. E a senhora, tenha à vontade.
Should I speak in English or Portuguese?
Maybe in English, because our professor don't understand Portuguese.
Well, thank you for this presentation, and I'll try to be quick. I think that we have been overwhelmed with Morocco's narrative in a lot of spaces already, so it's nice to have a change in the sense that we are having the opportunity of hearing the Polisário side of the story. So, considering the double position that the Sahrawis have as a national liberation movement and in the case of Polisário, and also as a state which is, contrary to what the colleague said, recognized by dozens of countries and a member of the African Union. What do you think that in terms of international humanitarian law, these double positions affect the case of Western Sahara?
Okay. Thank you. So, agora estou a falar em inglês, peço desculpa. É uma baralhada para mim, francês, inglês. Vamos ver. Eu agora passo a palavra ao Sr. Dr. Omar, se puder em 5 minutos responder às 4 questões, eu agradeço, para ver se ainda tenho possibilidade de dar a palavra a mais alguém. Tenha à vontade.
Good. First, it is a lie that Morocco included Western Sahara, all that stands Sahara on the agenda in December of this year, 24-27, 1963. I would, dear students, professors, refer you to the meeting record of that meeting, where the Moroccan representative objected to this. It was the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union, which is the promoter of the resolution referred to by the Professor 1614. That was the Soviet Union resolution, as you know, proposed by the Soviet Union. So that's one lie. But here we are, professors, all of us, and we have access to information. So we refer to the record, the meeting record in December 1963, to see that Morocco was opposing the inclusion of Sahara Español. But this is one of the main lies. Where in the international law, self-determination means a referendum. And I would advise the colleague perhaps to speak to his former king in his town and to ask him, why did you accept the referendum? In August 1988, Morocco did accept the referendum. It was Morocco who accepted the referendum. So perhaps they have the answer to this question.
Could you please answer my question, sir?
Third, the Moroccan proposal is credible and serious by the Security Council. This is not the language of the Security Council. We can cite from memory the Security Council resolution. No Security Council resolution, which are, by the way, drafted first in English by the United States of America, says the Moroccan proposal, quote, is serious and credible. Sentence. Everybody is seeing it. The Moroccan proposal of autonomy is serious and credible. I challenge anybody to bring me that phrase in any of the 6 working languages of the United Nations. Now, moving on. The gentleman spoke about the history of Western Sahara and this and that. We here in a faculty of law, there is one main judicial body of the international community called the International Court of Justice, headquartered in The Hague. It received piles and piles of documents from Morocco and Mauritania and Spain, not the Sahara, because it hears only states. And what is the conclusion of the judge of the world? All these documents he's speaking about, they do not demonstrate any type of territorial sovereignty between Morocco, the Kingdom of Morocco, and the Mauritanian entity. This is the ruling of the International Court of Justice. Regardless of that empty narrative then we hear about an entire extent to Mali, Niger, and perhaps to Scandinavia. That expansion, but that was not taken on board by the International Court of Justice. Unless you perhaps and others do not respect the rules of the judges of the world. We do respect it, because we are a law-abiding liberation movement and state in this world. Do we base our right on 1540? Indeed. The Magna Carta of decolonization, the Declaration of the Granting of Independence to colonial countries and peoples, adopted by the General Assembly in 1960, and also Resolution 1541, and also Resolution 2625. And I can go on, I won't waste your time about resolutions only. But in a nutshell, we do base our right on international law, represented by the United Nations Charter and relevant UN resolutions. We don't base our right on some myths, some and found in historical narrative. The international humanitarian law, indeed, the question. Morocco is an illegal occupation in our land, Sahara Republic, which infringes on the principles and objectives of the Constitutive Act of the African Union, and also infringes on the legal states of our sovereign territory. So indeed, the international humanitarian law, fortunately, the conventions and human protocols do apply.
You didn't ask my question. My question is, after the closing of the airspace between Morocco and Algeria, the gazoduct and the call of the Spanish ambassador, if you still believe that Algeria is not part of the conflict?
Já sido a pergunta. Em português.
Ok, então estamos entendidos.
Bom, temos ali uma mão levantada e eu tenho uma pergunta do chat, está bem? Eu sei que é sempre aborrecido comigo. Se fosse um sistema de mesa redonda, havia mais possibilidade de trocarmos impressões. Mas neste sistema que é uma conferência e perguntas a propósito da conferência, fica mais difícil e contraditório, não é? De maneira que vou agora ouvir ali a pergunta que está e a seguir pedir à doutora para traduzir a pergunta do chat e responder a essas duas questões mais. Mais uma pergunta, portanto, uma, cuidado filhos que eu tenho. Eu vou tentar, nós temos cerca de 10 minutos. Porque há aulas na sala, nós temos sempre este problema, as salas da faculdade têm aulas, de maneira que os alunos começam a entrar e fica uma anarquia, de forma que eu dou a palavra ali, já, faz favor, depois do ali, depois do outro. Boa tarde.
Vou falar em francês, porque a questão
Pour nous, très bien.
J'ai entendu que mon pays, l'Algérie, je suis de l'ambassade d'Algérie ici maintenant, il a été cité par plusieurs intervenants. Nous sommes déjà dans un milieu scientifique, une université de droit. On va parler sur le droit, mais malheureusement, les gens ont commencé à parler politique. C'est-à-dire pourquoi l'Algérie a arrêté le gazoduc, pourquoi. Il y a des arguments qui ont été communiqués le jour de la décision de la rupture de l'organisation diplomatique du Maroc. Tout est communiqué qui a été publié par notre ministre des Affaires étrangères, qui a bien expliqué l'évolution des choses et qui donne tous les arguments sur lesquels mon pays s'est basé pour prendre ces décisions. Ces décisions souveraines dont on ne peut pas les discuter. Autre chose, pour la question du Sahara Occidental, c'était pour mon pays, c'est une question de principe. Nous, l'Algérie, elle a toujours soutenu les causes justes à travers le monde, y compris en Asie, en Amérique latine et en Afrique. On a soutenu les pays lusophones contre le Portugal colonial, mais on a également soutenu les mouvements démocratiques portugais qui ont été appliqués en Algérie. C'est-à-dire que nous sommes avec des positions justes. Nous ne sommes pas avec des positions qui, comme notre frère a cité, la réelle politique, c'est-à-dire chercher l'intérêt. C'est une question de principe et des idéaux. Le Maroc, c'est un pays voisin, c'est un pays frère, avec lequel on a cru une construction maghrébine sur laquelle on a travaillé ensemble. Reste que la question du Sahara occidental, c'est une question de décolonisation. Le Sahara occidental, elle est inscrite au niveau des Nations Unies depuis 1963. Elle est reconnue par l'Union africaine en tant que République arabe sahraoui depuis 1983. C'est un pays fondateur de l'Union africaine et elle a tout le droit d'exercer son droit et de défendre sa position. L'Algérie, toujours, elle a soutenu des négociations directes entre les deux parties. L'accord de cessez-le-feu signé en 1991, il a été signé entre qui? Il y avait deux parties qui l'ont signé. Ce n'est pas l'Algérie, c'est le Front Polisário et le Maroc. Ce n'est pas l'Algérie qui l'a signé. Alors maintenant, on revient à notre langage. C'est un conflit régional, c'est un conflit dans l'Algérie symbolique. L'Algérie a abrité les gens au niveau du camp Sahraoui à Tindouf parce qu'ils ont été bombardés, parce qu'ils ont été par le napalm. C'est des gens qui ont fuyé la mort. Et l'Algérie les a accueillis pour les protéger, pas contre le corps pour la protéger. Juste pour clarifier ça, je vous remercie beaucoup.
Merci, monsieur. Alors, j'avais... S'il vous plaît.
Merci. Merci, monsieur le professeur, avec toute la diplomatie, la courtoisie, le sourire, et à l'instar de mon distingué collègue algérien, je vais m'exprimer également en français. Je ne souhaite absolument pas bilatéraliser le débat ni entrer dans une diatribe entre pays voisins dans une enceinte universitaire, ni prendre en otage un débat qui est censé être académique et universitaire. Quand j'ai levé la main et demandé la parole, c'était pour poser deux questions à monsieur l'intervenant de ce jour. Monsieur, vous avez parlé plusieurs fois, vous avez cité le mot occupation. Et vous êtes un juriste et devant nous, vous avez donné plusieurs références juridiques et non des moindres. J'imagine que vous connaissez certainement la Convention de La Haye qui donne une définition exacte du mot et du concept d'occupation. Je serai très ravi de vous entendre partager ces définitions et d'abord à partager dans sa substance et par la suite dire, et je me fie à votre honnêteté intellectuelle, si elle s'applique au cas d'espèce. Première question. Deuxième question, monsieur, le Front Polisário dit et se présente comme étant le représentant unique et légitime du peuple sahraoui. Pouvez-vous, s'il vous plaît, dire aux gens dans la salle, à l'honorable présence, citer la date de la dernière élection tenue dans les camps de Tindouf, ayant conféré la qualité de légitimité, vous êtes un juriste, la qualité de légitimité et d'unicité, même si, pour ma part, je considère que l'unicité est de l'ordre du divin. Il n'y a que Dieu qui est unique. Le reste, je comprends que dans un contexte, pas de multipartisme, pas de pluralité politique, pas de liberté d'expression, parti unique, c'est un peu difficile, mais c'était mes deux seules questions. Par contre, et rapidement, je ne veux pas bilatéraliser. Je veux bien entendre tous les arguments, mais franchement, et les accepter et pouvoir les débattre avec avec un esprit sportif. Nous sommes en Coupe du Monde, et beaucoup de fair play et beaucoup de bonhomie. Mais il est inconcevable de un peu de minimiser, de manquer de respect à l'intelligence de l'auditoire et de dire que le parti pris l'État, je n'avais pas l'intention de rentrer dans ces détails, un État qui abrite, qui finance, qui arme, qui outille le Maroc est un État parti dans ce différent régional. Nous le disons, nous le clamons, nous considérons le Sahara comme une partie de notre territoire et nous l'assumons entièrement. Et nous avons, dans la même situation, un État qui se veut observateur, qui se veut ne pas être partie prenante, qui est juste là, dans le voisinage, qui observe, mais qui arme, qui applique, qui finance, qui déploie son outil diplomatique, tout en étant, et par principe, par principe imbu d'un principe de solidarité vis-à-vis des causes justes. Et les causes justes à géométrie variable. Est-ce que dans l'entourage immédiat qui est le nôtre, dans le sud de la Méditerranée, c'est le seul cas de figure. Est-ce que le pays qui prend fait cause pour le Polisario fait la même chose dans les vérités indépendantistes en Europe, dans le sud de l'Europe ou ailleurs? Il me semble ne pas les avoir entendus en dehors de la question du Sahara. Merci beaucoup. Et monsieur le professeur, une dernière remarque si vous me le permettez. La prochaine fois que vous avez l'intention d'organiser quelque chose, soyez sûr, parlez-nous. On serait heureux de vouloir contribuer à une approche contradictoire et enrichir votre auditoire et venir échanger de manière toujours avec la politesse, la courtoisie, le sourire et la bienveillance sur le risque. Nous sommes des gens bien élevés et généralement très calmes.
Je suis très content de vous
Merci.
écouter. La suggestion est là. Alors, merci. J'avais le problème du temps. C'est un problème très grave pour moi. Parce que, vous savez, c'est difficile de faire la présidence des questions politiques clivantes. Et alors, je donne la parole à monsieur l'invité, le professeur Omar. J'ai besoin de vous dire si je n'avais pas de temps. Je peux parler de ça toute la nuit, mais c'est difficile.
Pourquoi sur parole?
Parce que vous savez, nous avons ici une conférence, c'est le modèle, c'est la nature du modèle. Nous avons ici une conférence avec des questions. Ce n'est pas une table ronde pour parler de tout. Alors, je vous remercie de votre patience avec moi, mais c'est très difficile de respecter le temps, parce que tous les gens qui veulent demander quelque chose veulent aussi en commentaire. Alors, mon français c'est très mauvais, parce qu'aujourd'hui c'est difficile de parler le français, parce que l'anglais c'est partout, mais je donne la parole à M. Omar. C'était la dernière
Question,
fois.
if it is possible to give me the possibility to ask my question. I have two questions, please.
If I give you the possibility, I have some people in the chat. I have some people in the chat. I have some people here who ask me. So it's very, excuse me, sir, but this is very difficult for me. This is a very big issue for 1 hour. So it's impossible. You understand me? So maybe you can give the answers, not with a big problem. And please, sir, please.
Thank you very much. When I started, said that we would hope to have enough time to have a fruitful, broader dialogue, and I stressed the word in Latin, dialogue. Students here, you know what dialogue is, logos, logos. You should know what logos is. Anyway, so in that spirit, logos, I'll engage the last question given to me by a colleague. Yes, I am in the Faculty of Law, and I base my arguments on the United Nations Charter, the 111 articles, and then competences of the 6 organs, and one of those organs is the General Assembly. In 1979, it's adopted a resolution. You can take note of that. 34/37, 21st of November 1979, a resolution by the General Assembly, one of the main 6 organs, talking about continued occupation. If you don't respect the G8 resolutions or whatever, you have no idea about your charter, that's your problem. Back in 1980, another resolution, 35/19. Occupation. So I don't need to go to The Hague and other. We can perhaps I've done my homework on that, and we can engage that. This is the General Assembly resolutions. If you are part of this world,
Sorry, my question was about the Hague Convention, sorry. Of 1906, sorry. My question was about the Hague Convention, sir.
I know, but what you don't understand is that the United
Yes,
Nations...
you are the professor, please.
No, no, no. The United Nations Charter is the highest. Perhaps you don't know this title. So please, remember the United Nations Charter have precedence on those. And this is one of the organs resolution. Do you invalidate the GA resolution? Now, what does that mean, the criteria? We can talk about that. But this is not the issue. I just wanted to tell you where is my starting point. I base my discussion here in international law on one of the main sources of international law, multilateral treaties. The UN Charter is the treaty by excellence. This is my source, this is my prejudice. If you have anything. Now back to the Frente Polisário, and then mentioned, of course, the colleague from Algeria responded to the question because I represent the Sahara Republic and the Frente Polisário. We don't represent any other member state of the 193 members of the United Nations. But let me just cite a resolution by the General Assembly in 1972. You can take note, Resolution 2983, operative paragraph 2. Recognize the legitimacy of people struggling against colonialism and express its support for and solidarity with the struggle of the people of Western Sahara, and calls on states to provide, quote, material and moral support, unquote. General Assembly Resolution, one of the main 6 organs again. The Brotherly Republic of Algeria, as the Brotherly Republic of South Africa, or the Brotherly Republic of Timor-Leste, are abiding by these United Nations resolutions, as many other countries. And let me say it frankly and openly, the Sahrawi people are very grateful to Brotherly Algeria. When both our neighbors, Morocco and Mauritania, invaded our land, the only way, the only refuge we found was the generous Algeria. So we make no secret of that, and we're grateful. But I don't know if the colleague here or any other of our local neighbors would equally stand out here and say that he or she is proud of Morocco being supported militarily, politically by Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Excuse me, I don't have time. You want to speak, sir? 1 minute. Only 1 minute, because I don't have the time.
أخ عمر ترجمة يعني نتحدث حس الصحراء. No fala português, não fala inglês.
Falar em árabe, seria about this good speak.
اسم بداع مهم من الصحراء الغربية، وأنا لاجئ هنا في تراب البرتغال، وما كان عندي حق نقدر نتكلم في العيون ونتكلم في السمارة ونتكلم كما تشوف الأخت إيزابيل رأيتها في محكمة في الرباط، محكمة غريميزي، وتحية من هون دارية المعتقلين من محكمة غريميزي. إذا كان المغرب إذا كان المغرب قد احتل التراب، فإنه لم يحتل النفوس، ولم يرجع من الصحراويين مغاربة رغم ثبوتهم، لأن الحق يبقى حقا وإن طالت عليه الظهور، لأن الحق واحد وما ظهر حق وتحقق إن الباطل كان زهوقا. شكرا
In this case, they will not excuse you, Mr. President. You did excuse me.
Podemos, é possível termos a tradução?
No, él es un saharaui que vive y viene de los territorios ocupados. Dice que ahí no puede hablar, no puede manifestar y quiere hacerlo aquí. Que él es un saharaui, que no es marroquí y que la historia será continua. Y tienen derecho que somos saharauis.
Ficou muito